As the last couple of you come in and get settled, please do one more check of your cell phones and make sure the ringers are turned off. Favor le poner sus celulares en silencio. A terrible accent, I apologize, I'm sorry. And then also please remember this. With this panel, please be respectful of when the speakers are talking. Use your listening ears, give them your full attention, and try to limit your side conversations. Just try to be respectful in this space. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the very first Women in STEM community panel. My name is Allie Davies, and I'm a computer science major here at Cañada College.
Hi, my name is Jasmine, and I'm a civil engineering major.
And we are so excited to help welcome you guys into our space. We've created a community on campus for the women in STEM. I would like those women in STEM who helped put this event on today, please stand up. If you have any questions, or if you get some in the back, these are the things you can look for in your classrooms or in the hallways or up in the STEM Center to get more involved. And of course, I would like to thank our amazing panelists for showing up today and taking the time out of their busy schedule to help bring insight to our community.
So to start, the purpose of this panel is to empower and motivate women in STEM. Also, we want to make awareness of the issues that we face as women in the STEM fields. Being said that, let's begin with the introductions of our panelists. And we want to start with Professor Shankar and follow it down.
I'm Professor Shankar.
Hi, I'm Professor Shankar, and I work in Cañada College. This is my third semester, and I really enjoy being here. And I am very proud of the students who have organized this, and I have seen so much in the last 3 semesters. I've seen some of these students they were my students in my class, and I have seen them grow, and I'm very proud of them. I'm very, very happy to be here on this panel today.
Hi, my name is Neeti, and I'm a tech lead and manager at Google here in Mountain View. I work in the consumer hardware group. I graduated from University of Florida with my master's degree in electronics, electrical and computer engineering. Google is like, I've been here at Google for 4 years, and I really enjoy working here. I'm really thankful for you guys to invite me over. A couple of you, I guess a bunch of you, had come to Google for an event for Society of Women in Engineering, and that's how they got in touch with me, and I was very encouraged and happy to see that a lot of these things are going on in community colleges also. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Kim. I am a recent graduate actually, so haven't been in the working world for too long, but I got my master's from Stanford University in basically marine biology and science communication. Since kind of graduating though, I've kind of taken a bit of a career shift. I currently work at a nonprofit organization called Beyond Type 1. It's focused on type 1 diabetes, so it's in the health world. And this past year, I've applied to medical school, and I'll be going to medical school next year. So thank you for having me.
My name is Marisela Rocha. I'm a civil engineer. I work at Google as a project manager. I'm managing their construction. Before that, I was working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, also in construction. So pretty much my background is construction.
Thank you so much. As you all now know, we have a panel of experts up here, so pay close attention to what they say. To start the panel off, I'd like to ask, how did you choose your career? And if you have any changes in your career, how did you know it was time to make those changes? We can start wherever.
So Since high school, or rather probably even since middle school, I was very interested in math and science. I know this is like a very cliche answer, but it is really true. And I knew that I wanted to do something that would involve both. I did think about going into medical school, but I figured it was not my cup of tea. But math was something that really interested me, and so did science in terms of like physics and those subjects. So when it was time to choose like what kind of major I want to do, I picked electrical engineering because that was one thing which I thought that really like, it's very hands-on, and I could just I could visualize it and use it daily. So I picked my major based on that. I have stayed in the same ever since I graduated from college as well. This was back in University of Mumbai. And so I have not switched careers in terms of like going completely switching fields, but I have worked on different kinds of projects and different kinds of products, and so that itself I have meandered through the different careers in some sort of way that way, and now that I'm a technical lead and I'm a manager, it is kind of a different step in the career.
In my case, I knew I was going to be a teacher from the time I was 5. So I did not have anyone to teach. So all the chairs and tables and everything in my grandparents' house, they all became my students. So there was no one there, but I'd be teaching them something. Whatever I learned in school, I'd be teaching them. But anyway, as I was growing up, it just became stronger. And when I got to my 12th grade, that's when I had to decide what path I was going to take. If it was going to be the STEM or if it was going to be a non-STEM. The one thing that had been a constant, as I was growing up, I was moving. My dad was working in the government. And in India, when you work in the central government, we call it the federal government here, so it's a similar idea. We would move every 3 years. So in India, if you move from one state to another state, it's almost like going to a new country. So it's a new language, it's a new culture. What was originally polite and acceptable and appropriate in one place suddenly becomes inappropriate, and you get in trouble. So things changed so drastically. The one thing that was a constant in my life was math. Math did not change. Whatever I knew in the previous place, I could use it again. And that was something that played a very important role in deciding that I wanted to, if I really wanted to be a teacher, the one thing that I wanted to teach was math. I did try other stuff in between. So while I was having my break between my bachelor's and master's, I had a 2-month break. I worked for a bank. I was bored. It was terribly boring. I should be excited because the one thing I was doing was constantly counting money. But I was totally bored, and I realized that this is not for me. And the same thing happened once I moved here. For a short time, I tried working for a tax firm, the H&R Block. Everybody has heard of that one. So I just went in there one day and decided that I know nothing about the taxes. All I did was sign the form and my husband showed me. So I don't know what I was signing, but I just decided one day that I really need to know what the tax system is about. So I went in there and I learned, and I was enjoying it. And they asked me, would you like to work for us? Yes. And again, within 2 months, I was terribly bored. I was waiting for the season to be over. And the first thing I did was go and join University of Colorado Boulder for a master's. So that is my path. After that, I never tried doing anything other than just teach.
I'll tell my story. So very similar to them, I really like math as well. Math was I really enjoyed it in high school. So when it was either something that had to do with math, and I wanted my counselor, I didn't have a lot of guidance from my parents or anyone that I know. So engineering was one of the options, or business. I had a couple of faraway cousins that were doing business. I'm like, I don't know, I want to do something different. So I went for the engineering route. And I really enjoyed it. So I graduated as a civil engineer with a minor in construction management. And I started working as a project engineer for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So there, it was very specific to construction. So I just made sure that everything was built according to my drawings and specs. That was cool. I got to wear a hard hat and some steel-toe boots and go out there and tell the contractor that he's doing his job wrong or right, or green light, move forward. So, they would see me weird, like, what is this girl telling me what to do? She's a girl, she's like a young girl, why is she doing that? But, tell her, hey, I'm the boss, so you listen to me, so that's kind of cool. After working for 3 years there, I had the opportunity to, I was recruited by Google. So Google needed similar implementation to their process of construction. So right now what I'm doing is a project manager role. So I don't just focus on the construction portion, I focus from the plan, from initiation of the project. So it could be just, they just allocated certain buildings, like what are we gonna do with it? So then I help them decide what they're gonna do with it, start planning, hire consultants to design this work, and then put it out to construction. And then again, so I touched the project all the way since the beginning all the way to the end. So it's a little bit more responsibility, but I like it, and my previous job helped a lot to move to this position, so it's been great.
So I love this question, how did you choose your career? I feel like I definitely chose my career, if that makes sense. So unlike these other lovely ladies, when I was younger, was all over the place, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So in first grade, I wanted to be an architect. When I was in kindergarten, I really wanted to work at Taco Bell. So I've just kind of been all over the place. I've always loved biology. I've always loved mathematics as well. And kind of going into college, I was dead set on either physics, international relations, or environmental science. I ended up studying environmental science. It was the very first class that I took my freshman year in college and just totally got sucked into it. And I think it wasn't just the content that really interests me, being able to go outside, look at things, being able to explain all of the processes that were happening around me. It was also the people that I met in the department and the professors and the relationships that I built there. That is really kind of what sucked me into environmental science and my particular major. So kind of throughout college I thought, okay, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to, I don't know, focus on policy? Do I want to, I don't know, be a consultant? And about halfway through my master's, I realized, actually, I don't know if environmental science is really where I want to be in terms of career. And I really freaked out at that because I was already so far along with my education and I had invested all of this time and all of this energy to learning the things that I was learning and thought, oh my goodness, what do I do now? So I actually really started from the ground up. I thought, okay, let's start from ground zero. I can do anything, what do I want to do? And how I really approached it was I just reached out to people. I talked to an environmental lawyer. I talked to one of my mentors who has his own lab. So I talked to PhDs, I talked to project managers, I talked to dentists, really just kind of using those connections that I had built in my undergraduate with professors and just talking to people, asking them, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? And after all of that, I kind of landed on medicine as a career. Whole backstory to that, obviously. But really just after thinking about, okay, like what are my interests, but not only what are my interests, what am I good at? What are my strengths? What do I think, how can my talents be best used in the future? That's kind of how I landed on this profession. To me, it was actually either teaching or medicine. And so I thought, okay, like, that seems pretty daunting. I might as well just kind of try that first. And so that's how I ended up in this career path, and I'm very excited for it.
Moving to the second question. What is one project or one accomplishment that you are most proud of, and how do you achieve it?
I think I just grabbed the mic, whoever.
Okay, project or accomplishment. I would say that, so I've been working for about 14 years now, and I have worked on multiple different consumer products. So ranging from, if you remember, I guess you guys were probably born by that time when there were MP3 players. People used to carry around MP3 players. And I worked in a company that was making chips for MP3 players, portable media players. And I have worked on chips for receiving live television on your mobile phone. That was a thing before the iPhones came. That was a big deal. Technologically very challenging, but in terms of the market, not that great. And I worked on Wi-Fi chips, so all of your phones have Wi-Fi, and you're probably always looking for where the next Wi-Fi hotspot is. I worked on Wi-Fi chips. But my the most proudest accomplishment so far has been this chip that I worked on at Google, and it's called Pixel Visual Core chip. Basically, it's actually in this Pixel 2 phone that I have right now. And what this chip does is it's in your camera path, and it basically improves the quality of your images. It does some image signal processing, computational photography, machine learning, those kind of applications. And the reason I'm most proud of this chip that I worked on is because I worked on it from ground up. First generation architecture, right from all the way from scratch to making it into a product. It's a lot of hard work. I learned a lot from it, so it's not like, oh, if you have worked for 10 years, you're not going to learn anything. We learn something every day. I'm still learning, and I hope I'll keep learning. The most exciting thing on this chip was, even though I'm an electrical engineer, I also participated in the software. I participated in the lab. If any of you like being in the lab, working in this industry is great because you get to be hands-on. And I worked with a lot of very smart people, and that kind of elevated my own knowledge as well. And another thing why I'm very proud of this chip is because the architecture that we came up with is, I don't know if any of you read any of the engineering books yet. Maybe when you go to college you will. There's a very famous book called Computer Architecture by Professors Hennessy and Patterson. They are from UC Berkeley and Stanford. Both of them are at Google right now. But this is like a Bible for computer architecture. And the architecture of our chip is a chapter in their latest edition. So that's a big deal because for students who will be going into computer architecture, electrical engineering, computer science, will be reading about this project that I worked on. So that is something I'm very proud of, and I'm hoping that I can continue doing something like that.
That's really cool because that's very different from what I do, so it's really cool here. So mine would be construction related, of course. So my first project was a DEA facility, so the Drug Enforcement Agency. And that was pretty cool because that was my first project ever. I was just like, hey, this is your job site, this is your drawings, your specs, build it. And I was like, okay, like, let's do this. So then it turned out very well. I mean, we did it within a year, and a lot of the projects, it ranges from 6 months to like 15 years, depending what it is. This first project that I had, it's a year. The current project that I have is 3 years. So yeah, it was cool to be part of this project, started and finished it. Yeah, it was cool. We had a great team. We finished it. For civil construction management, it is very critical to finish on schedule, under budget. So those are the main things I had to focus and then make sure the quality was good. So yeah, it was very interesting to see the agency's process of building as well as like your typical office. It was very high end security. So it was very interesting to be part of that.
The one project or one accomplishment, the one thing that I am very proud of is when I completed my second master's in CU Boulder. The reason I'm saying I'm very proud of that is because after the first year, I had developed a lot of health problems. I think it was more because I was a full-time student. I had a 7-year-old at home. I was juggling full-time classes. I was also teaching a class as a TA. And I was taking my son to every possible activity that I could think of. I did not want to stop anything. My husband also decided that he wanted to go to school at the same time. So he was going full-time school and he was working full-time. So which means I happened to be the parent who gets called if he falls ill. If my son falls ill, the first thing the school would do was call me. I had to leave everything, go run, pick him up. So doing all this, I realized one day I was just too tired and I just blacked out. So when we went to the emergency, they told me that my blood count was so low. So they kept me there, they gave me a blood transfusion, sent me home. I went to my doctor a few days later and I had to go through some tests, and then she called me back and she said, one of my colleagues just walked in and he just said, whose result is this? And I told him it was my patient, and he said, so when did this person die? Because the hemoglobin level was so low that they did not expect that person to actually be alive. And I was there that morning. So I was slowly losing blood, but I was still there. And then we had to go through a lot of tests, and I found out that I had a lot of problems. So my doctor called me back and she gave me an ultimatum. She said, I know you are desperate to do a PhD, but you need to think whether you want to be alive or have your PhD. So I thought, well, if I'm dead, a PhD is not going to be of any use. So just someone will say, oh, she died getting her PhD. I can die doing something else that's even better, but this is not going to help. So that's when I decided to take a master's, a second master's. And when one of my advisors asked me, why don't you just go, and in CU Boulder, in University of Colorado Boulder, we have 2 math departments. One is the pure math department and the other is the applied math department. He said, I don't really want to lose you, so why don't you just go to the other department and tell them you want to do a master's in applied math, and we will keep you here and you can continue, and somehow we'll find you a way to do your PhD. I told him I already have 1 master's in math from India, and that was in applied math, and another one in pure math. If I was going to tell my husband I'm going to get a 3rd master's in math, then he will definitely be, he'll just turn around and say, I knew you were crazy, but now you just proved it. So anyway, that I think was my greatest achievement, that I still managed to complete it, and I'm here today.
That's a hard
one to follow, but I will try to keep it brief. So I actually don't know if I said this earlier. I currently work as a project manager at a type 1 diabetes nonprofit. And kind of in response to this question of like, what are you most proud of? I think that the things that I have been most proud of in my life are the things that didn't come easily to me, or things that I had to work really hard for. And so I think it's, just looking back, this past summer was a really hard time for me. In terms of one project, our organization had decided to, we're really small, we're only 9 people. We decided to support 20 type 1 diabetics as they cycled across the country. So they went from New York to San Francisco on their bikes, biking over 100-mile days in 100-degree weather, all with this chronic disease, type 1 diabetes. And so it was a big project, let's say. And I kind of was just starting out on the job. I was also applying to medical school at the time. And so I was working, I don't know, very consistently 12, 14, even 16-hour days while waking up at 4 a.m. to try to write medical school essays and book flights for interviews, etc. It was really hard. I would come home and cry often most nights. It was a really, kind of a really low time for me. And there were so many times where I was like, I cannot do this. I'm, not focusing on my medical school apps. That's the long-term goal. How am I going to stay in this current job that I have? I was talking to my mom one day about it, and she looked at me and she said, Amy, you are not a quitter. And, oh man, like what mom advice, right? But realized, like, okay, you're right, I can do this. And so I made it through this bike ride, and after that, I had my resignation letter all written. I was gonna go in and talk to my boss and say, you know what? This bike ride is over. I'm so sorry I can't stay anymore. But I was actually so exhausted that I didn't have the emotional energy to actually go up and have that conversation with my bosses. And after that project had ended, things started to get a lot better. I was working more normal hours. They gave me the flexibility to be able to go travel for interviews, etc. And ultimately, I'm really, really glad I stayed. I've had such a positive experience in my workplace and really just incredibly supportive bosses and an amazing team. And I think that that is what got me through, as well as all of my friends and family who were just unbelievably supportive throughout the way. So,
thank you so much for that insight. I think it's definitely fair to say it's not easy following a STEM field or following the path of STEM, because it's every obstacle, I think it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go on, and it takes that effort to continue on. So one of the questions that we did have is, I think it takes a team together. I think most of you mentioned teams and partners. Did you have a mentor that's helped you along your way? And if so, how did you get the mentor? And what types of advice did they give you? And let's start from my end and work down.
Yes, so my mentor, she's a coworker, and same field as me, and she's been extremely helpful for me. Like it's been great. Any questions that I have career-wise, or the next step at work, or what can I improve, I always go up to her and ask her, hey, what do you think? It's like an assessment with her. And I check in with her every 6 months, like, hey, how are we doing? This is my plans, what do you think? And we're in similar fields, so it's always been very helpful. And then other support group that I have is my college friends. We're all engineers, so we keep in touch very often. We created like a yearly trip, and we just meet up every year, talk about work, and talk about our careers, where we're going next, and just support each other and talk about what problems we have at work, maybe have similar problems, and just give advice to each other. So it's going to be our 3rd year. We're going again next week or third year. So it's been very, very helpful just to have that support from friends and just share our thoughts about work and engineering and work. So yeah.
I 100% would not be where I am today without the incredible mentors I've had in my life. And I think that actually if there was like one piece of advice that I could give to like this whole room, it would be like find amazing mentors who will invest in you and really value you as a human. I think for me, I can, I have like a whole list of mentors, probably 5 really stand out. A lot of faculty, actually, for my undergrad experience. And I think I'm really lucky. I don't think going into school I really realized how important mentors would be down the road. But I was really lucky in that I took a lot of small classes, so small class sizes. I went to a lot of office hours where I would get to know my professors, and it was very clear whether this professor was going to be, okay, I should go to their office hours more often, or this person still has no idea who I am, even though we've seen each other 20 plus times. And so I would just say just really reaching out to those people who you not only respect, but who also respect you and really see you as a person and are willing to invest in you and put the time and energy. I mean, it's too long of a story, but actually I would not have, I think, even considered medical school as an option without the people that I had in my life.
Some of the points you shared are true about faculty being like one of your mentors. And when you are actually into the workplace environment, what I have tried to do is not have just like one mentor at one job. I have different mentors who I discuss different kinds of things with. So, for example, I have like my boss, he's a great mentor, my current boss, and I've been lucky enough to have like great bosses and have been like good mentors, but also like technically very capable people who are nice also, and they are ready to mentor you. But what I've noticed is, especially when you enter workplace, and probably maybe in college a little bit, is that nobody will say that yes, I will be your mentor if you just go and ask them. In the sense, they will say yes, but they will not be really invested in it. The way I have found mentors is not by like explicitly seeking them out, but by proving that I can do something and I'm really interested in it. So, for example, if I take on a small role in a project, but I do a great job and I start asking like good questions and stuff, people themselves get interested and say that, oh, okay, this person is really interested, they want to do a good job, and so they will themselves also invest time in that. I have also had like, so technical mentors, yes, then I have like mentors at work who are showing me like what are the ropes of management ladder, so that is also important. And I have a separate, another mentor who we are kind of mentors to each other, because we will talk about things like which are more like personal issues at work. So you kind of need different mentors for different things, but the key is to prove to the mentor that you're really interested in what you're trying to learn. And without that, nobody would want to waste their time without you. For example, now that I'm a tech lead, I do want to see the same like interest from the other side. And in that case, I can be a mentor to that person. So I would really encourage you to actually not just seek a mentor for the sake of it, but also show that you are really interested and enthusiastic about anything.
I do share some of the views that were expressed here. I have had a lot of mentors too, but not in the sense that it's not like I had approached anyone and asked them to be a mentor. A lot of times you don't really have to ask them to be a mentor if it is someone that you respect and someone you feel comfortable enough to go and talk to and seek advice, that person is, in a certain sense, that person is a mentor. So there were many professors that I had in college when I was in India and also here in the United States, that I would walk up to them, and sometimes it would be about the particular subject, sometimes it would be something else, but related to education. For example, when I wanted to go to, when I was thinking of going into a master's program, before taking admissions, I went to talk to one of my professors and asked him what was his opinion, what would he suggest. And he told me which university to apply, and he told me who to talk to. So you don't necessarily have to go to a person just for one particular thing. In general, if you have a good relationship, and building a good relationship with your professors is very important. When I taught in the University of Colorado, sometimes I would have classes of 270 students. I had one class with 270 students in my pre-calculus class. Except for the 3 or 4 students who came to my office hours, I did not know a single other person. I have also taught classes where I had just 15 students in a community college. I know every one of their names. And I knew them for a long time, even after they left my class. I'd bump into them, I'd talk to them. So one thing that you are lucky as students is having small class sizes, being in a community college. It's a cozy environment. So take advantage of your office, of the professor's office hours. Go approach them and talk to them. When the time comes that you need a reference letter, you will be most comfortable talking to someone that you've been talking to the entire semester. If you just show up for class or not show up most of the time, but you still do very well in the class anyway, if you walk up to that person and say, "Can you give me a reference?" they'll think twice about it. I would not refuse, but I'd think twice about, I don't really know the student. Not because I don't want to help the student, but because I don't really know the student. I don't know what to write about them. Does that make sense? So, networking with your peers is nice. Having a lot of mentors, and by mentors it does not have to be professors. It can be your counselors. It can be your seniors, someone who's already taken the class. One of your tutors can be your mentor. So mentors come in all forms and sizes. It does not have to be academic. It can even be your next door neighbor who has done something with STEM. So please keep that in mind. Okay?
Thank you.
I would like to add to one of the points that you pointed out was seniors. It's a very good resource, you should use it, because they have been through stuff that you are going to go through right in the next year. So you should definitely go ahead, contact your seniors, figure out what kind of books they are reading or what kind of issues they ran into in class. And I have used a lot of seniors as my mentors, and it has really worked out.
I just want to thank you, and thank you for emphasizing how important having a mentor is. I hope that you'll take that in consideration and take advantage of the STEM mentorship program that we have here at Cañada, and then also the VTO that have mentors too. And yeah, just take advantage of that. And And moving from that, I want to go to the other question. And is, in your current job, how is the environment like as a woman, and how does it affected your career? Is either in a positive or negative way? Or do you notice that it's been changing throughout time? Yeah. And we can start with Carl.
Since I probably being the one that has longest, I've been teaching for 30 years. So I can definitely say when I started as a student, I had one female professor. Everyone else was a male. All the math professors were male. All my physics professors were male. The only female professor I had was in biology and chemistry. And I've seen that change slowly over time. And with my generation, most women who graduated with a math degree would go into teaching a high school. I did that too. I taught for 2 years in high school in India because it was much easier than going into a college, even though I wanted to work in a college. Once I came here though, things changed and I found that it was much easier for me as an instructor in a college. I have to thank University of Colorado for that. The moment I walked in, they said, well, you're going to be a TA. You taught high school in India, so go teach this class. They gave me a book and sent me to the class. I had no syllabus, so when I walked in and the students asked me, where is the syllabus? I looked at them and said, what is a syllabus? Well, I didn't ask them that, but this was many years ago, when none of my professors gave me a syllabus either. I was in my master's program, and this is in the United States. I'm not talking about India. The United States, and I had 10 different classes in CU Boulder. Not one professor handed me a syllabus. So anyway, I started that way, and I was given the most interesting class. It's called Math for Liberal Arts, which is for non-STEM majors. And most of the students would walk in and say, I hate math. And this was new for me. So here I was, someone who loved math, who only thought of math as the constant in my life. So I always knew the language outside my house would change. You know, I will be standing there at the bus stop, somebody else will come and talk to me in a different language. But when I went home, all those math books were waiting for me. You know, my best friends. Well, it wasn't that bad. But I had a lot of friends. But anyway, so to talk about this, coming back to the job, I find that there are a lot of women now taking up math, becoming math majors, being math professors, and even I see a lot of people getting into physics as well. So that is very encouraging.
Very interesting. I've been working for about 14 years. My first job, I remember, had like a handful of women in the whole company. It was a smallish company, and it was, the number of women was not that much. However, I should say that I also came from India, and I graduated with my bachelor's over there. And we did have a lot of female students in class, and they all graduated with engineering degrees. But when I came to the US, I saw that I didn't see as many students in master's or PhD program who were women. So that was a little bit surprising for me. That's not something that I could have changed at that time. And through my career, I'm now seeing again a surge in the number of women who are joining right out of college, and it's really great. And I have seen women in my career now who are like managers, directors, vice presidents, CEOs. So in terms of the, I don't see it being either as a positive or a negative. I have not had that problem. But I do want to see more and more women joining. So right now, since I'm in the tech field, right? So there's a lot of things in the news about women in engineering, diversity in engineering in general, and the push that the companies are doing right now is huge. And you guys are like right at the front line of this push. So once you decide to go take any STEM field, like there is a wide open space right now, and people have become like very receptive to ideas. People now understand the problem, which nobody used to have acknowledged before. And so I think now the people who will be entering to colleges and like professional fields now have like a very, very good footing to stand on.
So, like I said, my organization is only 10 people. Out of those 10 people, 9 of them are women, and we just have one guy on the team, so he's pretty outnumbered. And I've only been in my role for 1 year, so much less experience than these 3 over here. I guess what I would say to this is I have an amazing working environment. I am so lucky to work with the people that I work with. And when I was searching for jobs, after I finished my master's, scrambling to find something, there were really 3 kind of goals that I had. 3 things that I was really looking for. 1, I really wanted it to be health related because I didn't have a lot of experience in the health field, but knew that I wanted to transition in that direction. 2, I was really looking for learning and growth opportunities. Like, how much can I learn in this role? How much don't I know? How much can I learn? And the 3rd thing was really the working environment was so important to me. That was crucial. Is who will I be working with, and who are my bosses going to be? And like I said, I was very, very lucky. Even though it was really hard, there have been so many times at work where, if I mess up or make a big mistake, my bosses say, "You know what, Amy, you are a hard worker. Don't worry about it. We will cover for you." I won't go into the details, but lots of things that can kind of go wrong, just honest mistakes. And my working environment has been really, really wonderful. But I work with mostly women.
So for me, starting with school, all my engineering classes were men, and we only had like 1 or 2 ladies in the class. It was very common, so I got used to it when it came to work. I was starting, okay, we can have guys kind of thing. So working at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, there definitely, I was like maybe 2 women in construction. And then once I started Google, it's a lot more diverse. So definitely a lot more women, but there right now, when I go to meetings, a lot of the time I'm the only woman there. But yeah, I see it changing. I see more women in construction now, or a lot more girls interested. So I'm hoping to help them make their mind and go into engineering, construction, so they'd like to play out.
Thank you so much. So we have just a few more questions, and we'll be able to turn the microphones over to the audience, because I know you are itching with questions. What is the biggest challenge that you faced in your career or in your education as a woman, and how did you overcome it? Was there ever a time you wanted to quit, and what got you through that? And then we'll start this way and work back.
So for me, it's probably being right after graduating from college and going into the construction world. You do see a lot of men and a lot of older men that see you as if you might not know this, or who are you telling me to change this, or this is the right way. So for me, that was the biggest challenge. So a lot of the times I would ask my upper management, say, how can I improve this? How could I, be more credible, or how could I prove them wrong? And she just told me to calm down. Just be very confident, and if you know your stuff, then they shouldn't be able to kind of overstep you. So that took me a while to kind of get into it. It's like, okay, I need to stand up for myself. Like, I know this. Like, they they shouldn't come out here and say like, oh, you're just the girl, get out of the way, I'm building this. So that throughout time, it helped me. So now I feel a lot more confident, but I saw that as a challenging starting my career where it's like, oh, how do I tell that older gentleman that he's not doing his job right? So, yeah.
So in response to this question, I'm actually going to pull on an experience of a coworker of mine. Her name is Dana, and she's our communications manager at Beyond Type 1. Our organization is really big on social media. So we are always on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. But of course with social media, you get a lot of feedback and opinions and just a lot of voices that are out there. And so as the person that manages all of social media communications, etc., we like to call it mansplained a lot, where we'll post something and someone will come out with a very strong opinion, and a lot of times it's in a pretty rude way. But I really respect and admire kind of the way that she gets through it. She is just so confident in herself and what she stands for. She has doubts in the back of her brain that we kind of discuss offline. But just being really confident in what she does and the work that she's shown, it just has been really, really amazing to see. I've already kind of discussed times when I wanted to quit my job. It almost happened. And just overcoming that is just really focusing on the light at the end of the tunnel. This isn't gonna last forever, and so just get through it.
In terms of challenges, I usually put my technical challenges at the top. Like, that's my goal, to solve technical problems and just get through that. However, I can share one. So I've been lucky that I haven't faced major challenges as a woman in my career. I've been lucky enough to have that. But I can share one piece of story that I went through when I was right out of my master's. So I joined this company in Austin, Texas. And so I was like one of the only women one of the handful of women in the team. Actually, the team had no women, there were women in other teams. And I was the only junior person, not American. I was from India, and I didn't have a house, I didn't have dogs, I didn't have kids, so I didn't know what to talk with them. So whenever we went to lunch, I would just sit quiet, and I'm not like a socially quiet, like an introvert person, so I do like to talk, but I don't have anything to talk. So I used to have like a tough time getting socially interacting with my colleagues, and it was not. No offense to them. I mean, they were used to talking about certain things, and I just didn't know what to do about that. And since we were in Austin, turns out people love football there. So, and my husband, who was also studying at UT Austin, loves football. So I started watching some football games here and there, and then I realized, oh, this can be a topic of conversation. So I started watching a lot of football games. I went to UT Austin football games, and I learned, the only game I had known before was cricket. So this was a big change for me to learn what football is, understand a lot of the rules, and actually be able to watch with my colleagues. And that was a real icebreaker. And so that is something that I went out of my way to learn something new so that I could chat with people. So it was like one of the small challenges, and a lot of you will face that challenge when you step into the like a new environment and you need to learn something new, how to fit in. You kind of try to do some of those things.
The biggest challenge when I started, it was very similar to one of the experiences here, that one of the panelists said that the men in her field did not respect her in the beginning, saying you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I had that. In India, when I started teaching at high school, I started as the head of department. So I had just come out of college. I really did not have much experience. I did start straight from college. But the people who were working for me they've been teaching for 20 years, 30 years. But I had to tell them what they were supposed to do, because I had to look at all their exams. That was part of my job. So if I told them, you can't give an exam like this, for example, one person, and this was not a man, it was a woman who was much older than me. And the only thing that she had, it was a second grade, and the exam was all multiplying by tens and hundreds and thousands. So I said, you need to give something else for multiplication. It can't be just this. So she just turned around and said, you just started working now. How would you know? So I just told her, well, I have to tell you, and you have to change your exam, or I will change it for you. So yes, you have to be confident. So it doesn't matter if someone does not agree with you. If you know what you're doing is right, and if you are confident in what you're doing, then you will eventually gain respect. So people will start believing you, and they will start seeing that you know what you're doing. So that is something that you should keep in mind. And that's what helped me. The more someone told me, oh, you won't be able to do it. So, okay, that's a challenge. I'm definitely going to do it, not just do it, but I'll do it well. So that's the approach that I have always taken, and it's always helped me.
Thank you. I really love all of your responses. And this next question is in a way related to the last one. But what will you say to someone who doubts women's capabilities and achievements? Has someone say something to you like this, and how do you respond to it?
And this one can be like a popcorn, so if you have a situation that you want to share, go for it.
I'll start. Like I said, I've just been so lucky. I can't think of a specific interaction that I've personally had. I like to think that if someone did say something to me, I like to think that my approach would just be really open, really, tell me more. Just really try to figure out where that person is coming from, and whether that's a person that will be able to have a dialogue with you, right? I think sometimes people just say things because they want to say them, but whether or not you can actually have a real, honest conversation is another story. So just being really open, tell me more. I want to know where you're coming from, and just kind of start from there would be my ideal situation. But I'm lucky in that I have yet to experience something like that.
What would you say to someone who doubts women's capabilities? I would just say try to give them a chance first. And if you think that the person is not doing what they were supposed to be doing, then you can always have a conversation. But a lot of times I see that when someone says, and of course, since I've been teaching for a very long time, I can say that I have been in the field where it was mostly dominated by men, and I would get this thing very often that anything I'd say or do, it would be, oh, it's that girl, so maybe she doesn't know what she's doing. I've had this experience even as a student. So my advice would be just give the other person a chance. And women like to be heard of, they want to be listened to. So give them a chance, listen to them, and when they bring up something, just all I would say is listening is one of the best things that a person can do. And when someone approaches you, then don't just assume that they are dramatizing something or being overly dramatic. That's another thing that a lot of people would say, oh, women, they are dramatizing everything. So that's not necessarily true. So give people a chance. That's what I would say.
So I have heard one person say that a woman cannot do this, and that's my son. He's 5 right now, and he told me something when he was 4, and it was about something. Oh, a woman cannot do this, and I said that's not true. And so basically, the point I'm trying to convey is this begins at home. We should not. In the family itself is where we start cultivating these impressions or these biases, and he has never said anything like that again. And but what I would like to say is, frankly, if somebody really told me that professionally, I would just hear it from one ear and blow it out the other ear, because I do not believe in that. And if somebody tells you that, what I would say that it's our job to go and prove them wrong. So I think that's what I would do.
Yeah, my advice would be to understand how everyone works. Everyone works very different. And for example, in my team, I have a person who's very dramatic, but she gets things done. And that's the way she works, and we understand how she works. So then we know that, no, it's different how people work. So they have to be able to understand the person and be able to accept that, because you'll see that in the real world that people are very different, and you're gonna have to learn how to work with different kind of people.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing. I just feel so encouraged actually by the faces that I see at this panel today. There are so many men who are here at this Women in STEM panel, and I just find that really encouraging. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a shout out for being here. So thank you guys.
And that was the perfect segue. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask our amazing panel? Raise your hand if you have any questions. Somebody. In the back? Right in the back. I'm just gonna. Questions about what it's like to go to grad school, or.
Just a random question. I want to know, what do you guys think right now? Do you guys think it's changing? Do you guys think more girls are going to the STEM field? Do you think it was because, in the past, parents see us, women should stay at home and all that stuff? Do you think all that stuff is changing because, more girls are going to the STEM? Or do you guys think that it's still the same way?
For me, I have two older sisters, and they didn't go to college. When I told my dad I was going to go to college, he's like, "Where are you going? You're not going away from the house." I'm like, "Yes, I am." So there's a little argument there, but I definitely think it's changing from what I see. I do a lot of outreach, and I see a lot of girls interested in engineering, so it's nice to see that. But yeah.
So one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the United States, is the reason a lot of the girls don't go into STEM is because somehow they think that, oh, I hate math right at the beginning of 5-6-year-olds. And also somehow the impression becomes like girls are dumb or something. And some of the smartest people I know are women, so I don't believe in that at all. But what I'm seeing right now is the push is coming from industry and universities in terms of just encouraging right from from a very young age. And this is something that has not happened like maybe 5 years ago. We didn't have that. So it will take time, but I do see, like, because there's just a lot of stats out there about like graduation rates and what women do after they graduate and how many drop out of like computer science, for example, or those kind of things. And those things are changing now because of the push that is coming out in the media, as well as push from industry and from education, from universities.
To address that question, I do see that a lot of girls these days, I see that a lot of women are interested in STEM, and they have realized that STEM can be interesting. We don't see as many people going into math or physics or engineering, but they do take interest in environmental science. They are interested in geology, geography. They do take a lot of, there are a lot of women getting into STEM areas. It's just getting into the math, science, and engineering. The math, physics, and engineering, those are the fields where we don't see as many women. And that is something that we would like to encourage more students to get interested in those areas. And I'm hoping that we will see more and more positive change in that direction.
I would like to add one more thing to that. The perception is changing a lot also because of the recent state of startups and success stories that we have had, especially here in Silicon Valley. And suddenly being a nerd or a geek is cool, it's sexy, and so people want to emulate a lot of the startup founders and stuff, and that encourages girls also to stay in that field, which these kind of things were not big deals when probably we were growing up, but now you guys see so many things that there's just a lot of exposure, and I think that also is an encouragement point.
I would like to thank you for your really inspiring stories and advice. I am actually the of the physics department here at Cañada. And in encouraging students in my field is certainly challenging. In your answer about faculty or other mentors, you place a lot of emphasis on what the students should do in building their own confidence, connecting with faculty, but obviously the faculty should be just as responsible for this kind of support. In the building of the confidence, making the connections, in thinking back to some of your favorite faculty, and it doesn't just have to be in physics, right? Can you tell us some of the stories where the faculty really reached out to you or built your self-confidence? What is it that you think we should do for our students to build their confidence and help them along?
Well, I have to say one of my favorite professors ever was a physics professor, Pat Burkett. She was amazing, and actually truly, she wasn't someone that I got to know really well, but she was a really big inspiration to me as someone, a strong woman in physics. So what I would say, I'll bring up one example. One of my closest mentors, his name is Chris Lowe, and he basically studies developmental biology from sea worms, and when he was my mentor for my master's program. And when I told him, after my very first quarter of my master's, I told him, I don't actually think I want to go into the field that I'm studying. He's like, great, what do you want to do? And from then on, he really encouraged me I guess, in kind of the exploration path. He wouldn't ask me, okay, why don't you want to do this? He wouldn't try to push me towards the direction of staying in the field that I was in, but would truly ask me questions and just try to make the connections. He connected me with some of the physicians that he knew. I think that was actually really, really helpful, is connecting me with people that were in the field that I was interested in so that I could talk to. And he gave advice, as someone who's, I needed letters of recommendation. He said, okay, this is what I look for when I'm, asked for a letter of recommendation. So I think it was just really kind of the approach that he took in the questions that he asked me, and really just listened. I felt he really, really listened to what I was saying. So.
For me, it was my professors being the connection from school to the industry. I didn't have a lot of guidance from family of where to work after I'm done with school, so I had a professor that he specifically explained every company I could work for, the difference, and each company, maybe contacts I should contact, summer internships, so that really helped me to open my eyes and see my options, and that was very, very helpful for me.
There were a few professors that that inspired me into going into the teaching profession, not just my 5-year-old ambition being a teacher, but to keep it going. I had some professors who would always listen. Sometimes I would just walk into their just meet them in the hallway and say, do you have a minute? I need to ask you something. So sometimes they would say, if they're busy, they would say, I have a class, yes. But otherwise he would say, well, can you come in half an hour? We can talk about it. So he was always there to answer any questions. And I could just sound off any ideas. He was a very good sounding board. So I could just ask him something and say, what do you think? And sometimes he would say that would be a great idea. And sometimes he would tell me, I don't think you should be doing that. So to have someone who would listen to you, so for a professor, what can they do? They can listen to the students, and it doesn't have to be just women, it's women and men, it's all students. They like to be treated as human beings. So, just listen to them and give them whatever advice you think is best. And it's okay to say, I don't know anything about this also. And say, maybe you can talk to this person. There are times when I find that I may not have the answer. And I can give this example. I was in an office, I was an adjunct, and I was working in Sacramento. I was working at the Cazumnes River College. And when I was in the office, there was another professor who had a student walk into his office, and he was talking to him. And the student was in very bad shape. He just needed he was desperate to get some help. And it was very clear that the professor, he wanted to help, but he had no idea. He just said, well, I don't know what to do with this. And this is something about financial aid. This student was just saying, I don't have anyone to help me. I'm not independent, but they're sending me in circles in the financial aid office. I don't know who to talk to. And I just felt sorry for the student. And I just asked them, is it okay if I can join the conversation? I said, I hope you don't mind. I'm not trying to butt in, but I just want to, can I add something? So he said, well, please join in if you have some ideas. And I told the student, I'm sure that there are other students who have some similar kind of problem. Why don't you just walk into the financial aid office and don't just talk to the person in the front, but maybe you can go and talk to the manager or someone someone higher up, and they might know something. And 3 weeks later, I saw the student come back again. And I said, well, your professor is not here. And he goes, I didn't come to see him, I came to see you. I just wanted to tell you that I got my scholarship. So sometimes it is just, you don't really have to know the answer. You can just tell them or point them to somebody else who may help them. So please keep an open mind and be willing to listen to students. They will not come to you with a problem if they don't respect you. So if they're coming to you, it means they already have great respect for you. And that's a very nice place to start. And when they come to you, they know that you are probably someone who they feel very safe with. So they feel they're safe with you, and they feel that they respect you, and they know that you will listen to them. Or at least they are hoping that you will listen to them. So the best thing you can do is give that student a few minutes of your time, and it will make a big difference for the student, even if it is just a few minutes for you.
Any questions?
Hi. So nobody really says flat out women can't do this anymore. It's much, much more subtle bias. Or would you say that we're simply the generation that has to be uncomfortable until we've proven ourselves enough?
So, I think from my perspective, like getting into a new career, like when you get into industry or whatever, everybody needs to prove themselves, regardless of whether it being a man or a woman. So it's not like, oh, there's this new junior guy who has just joined the industry and he doesn't have to prove himself. And if the reality of the situation is that you prove yourself, maybe you have to. But that doesn't mean that you take it as a punch in your face and you just sit down. What life teaches us is to get up and face it again. And basically what happens is, you prove yourself means that, okay, maybe once or twice, it's not going to happen at every stage in your life. And what I really don't encourage, or rather I should say, what I discourage is for you to get discouraged if you have something like that. Because it's life, such is life, and there are like billions of people out there, everybody has a different personality, everybody has different biases, and you cannot get over each and every person's bias. But what you can do from your perspective, from your personal development perspective, is not to take these things seriously, not to take them to heart.
I can add to that. For every person who is not very nice to you, there are many, many people who are nice to you. So think about it that way and look at it in a positive light. I always like to think of, I love this American saying, if you are handed a lemon, make lemonade. I don't just make lemonade, I enjoy it. So just take whatever comes up and take it as a challenge. And each time, it can be a small challenge, it can be a big one. But each time you overcome that, there is great satisfaction and a lot of confidence. We all have to prove ourselves. As Neeti said, that you do have to prove yourself when you are in a new place. In every new class you take, you have to prove yourself when you're taking a test. So these things are always going to be there. But overcoming challenges is what you want to focus on. Focus on the positive things. Hang on to those positive experiences. And that will get you through. Okay?
I wanted to add to that. So yeah, I think that as you are further down your career, you gain more confidence as you go. And again, something that when you start, it's not like, oh, I need to prove myself every day. No, you just do your work and then just have that in the back of your head, like, okay, I need to do good so that I can build trust in other people of your work. And you'll gain confidence, as soon as you see results that you're doing good. And again, not just because you're a woman, but just because you're starting something new, and it comes into like not just starting your career, but anything new that you're doing along your career. You'll start like with, oh, I need to just prove that I can do this, and then just start building confidence as you go.
Thank you so much. We have another question over here.
Okay. So this is a question that I would like to ask on behalf of everyone in the computer science field. So the one thing that I observe in the computer science field is that there's way more men than women. And I don't know if you guys watch the show Silicon Valley. There's literally only two female characters in that show. And I think it really gives the wrong message of what computer science represents to the audience. So my question is, what is your advice? Sorry, let me rephrase that. What would your advice be to make computer science more welcoming to women?
Well, probably have another startup which has like a female entrepreneur. There's lots of women out there now who are into entrepreneurship. But that's one of the things. But I think making it more appealing is really starting right from school level, like elementary level, middle school level. That's where students have kind of sort of meandering towards what most of the people have started meandering towards them. And until and unless you make science, math, computer science very attractive at that age, it's not going to happen when you reach college level. So the reason most of us are still here in STEM is because we have had this interest from beginning. So really the way to encourage women to stay in any other STEM fields, not just computer science, but any STEM field, is to have that. But also now we are like so many role models coming out that you see a lot of them in the industry, especially that, and plus the push that industries are making is, I think, that's going to be the key.
I'd like to ask this of all of the panelists, because I think it's a really great question, because I feel like everybody is in a underrepresented field. So I'd love to hear from everybody, if you wouldn't mind.
To make computer science more appealing, maybe what we can do is, I think, the answer is for you. We can start encouraging girls from, whoever we meet to say, that computer science can be interesting. It can be cool. So do you have sisters?
Yeah, I do. I have
So,
a sister.
you can start right there. Sisters, cousins.
Yeah.
I have about 6 or 7 nieces and nephews, and almost all of them are engineers. And most of them, we keep trying to tell them, you all don't have to be engineers. We don't mind having a few lawyers and doctors or somebody else. Try something else too. But anyway, we have, I have 3 nieces, all 3 of them are engineers. So it's just a question of, what atmosphere they have around them. So if they see everyone around them talking science, they are going to be interested in science. So when my son was 7 years old, I said I was a student and my husband was a student. So what we did at home routinely was, right after dinner, the dinner table was cleared out and it was homework time. So my husband was doing his homework, I was doing mine. Our son would demand that he needed some homework too. Because it sounded like something fun that only mom and dad were doing and we were not letting him do. Because his teacher didn't give it to him. So that's what happens. It's a question of how you look at it. Okay?
Before you were to respond, I want to add to his question. what can he actually do at college besides of with his family? Now that he is in a community college, how can he encourage other girls here right now to be more engaged, like to be interested in computer science?
Do you have a club or something?
We used to have a
Computer
club.
science
Oh, we had it.
You do have a computer science club?
We had a club. Oh. We had a computer science club, but there's a lot of issues going on, so we decided to shut it down a little bit and plan it for the future. So not at this moment. We don't really have a club for now.
But maybe you can join that, as part of the STEM club, you can encourage girls to be more interested in computer science.
Yes, you can.
Talk about the stuff that is really cool about computer science, something interesting, and get them to be interested in the subject.
Right. That's what we're trying to figure out now. Yeah. We're trying.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I have a lot of nieces and nephews too. That's my, I'm always thinking like, how do I encourage them to become an engineer? I'm the only engineer in my family. So what I do, I just try to, so for the older ones, they're like, oh, I'm interested in fashion, I want to do something in fashion. I'm like, you could create an app for fashion. Or I just try to relate it back to, to technology. So whatever time, like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. So I try to kind of open their minds to think about technology and how they could correlate anything they want to do with technology. One other thing, a lot of outreach. So I do a lot of outreach just because, especially Latin families, they're not very familiar with engineering. So that's what I do. I go out there and just encourage them to like, hey, I was able to do it. If you ask and try, you should be able to do it too. So I feel like I do a lot of that because I feel like we don't have much. A lot of, like those engineering. So I feel like once you guys graduate, you guys probably do the same, go back and do some outreach to those students that need a little bit more encouragement.
I don't know personally if I can say a lot in regards to computer science, but for me, I think really kind of two things. I think one is, a lot of the things that we're talking about, right? Women having to prove themselves is just such a societal, systemic problem, right? And it's things that, like that, where it's like girls like pink, boys like blue. My daughter is so good at art and my son is so good at math, right? So a lot of the things that we've been talking about, things that need to happen in the home, things like encouraging sisters, encouraging siblings, nieces and nephews. So I feel like it's really coming from two ends. One end, right, is, what's happening in the home, what's happening in the day-to-day. And one thing that I think about too a lot is kind of things that are more top-down. So one thing that I thought about a lot before I decided that I wanted to pursue medicine as a career was, can I have a family? Can I successfully, as a woman, have a child, raise family? Will my, future partner have like an equal share in that? And will this profession, are there opportunities to have good benefits where I can take, a good amount of maternity leave, where my partner would be able to take an equal amount of paternity leave, right? And so I think that there are a lot of things, one day in the future when all of us are, in, places where we want to be, right? What types of policies will we be encouraging? Are we the people making those decisions? And so, but I really think, I see it as coming from the home, as coming from society, and then also as coming from policy as well.
All right, thank you.
I think we have time for one more question.
Alright, so I see that women are actually like moving they're getting more employment in the STEM field. But what do you guys think about African American women and, for example, Muslim women getting in the STEM field? Do you think they're discouraged to actually apply and get into a big company, or big companies are ignoring them kind of?
I'd also like to add to his question, also non-binary individuals, people who are trans, and people who are like queer. Those are also sections that might not be represented as much as they could be.
So I can tell from personal experience is because of the awareness that has happened in the last few years. I know I mentioned this a couple of times already, but I'm seeing it with my own eyes right now. It is because of the awareness that has happened in the last few years. It has been, companies are making an effort to actually go ahead and try to recruit more diverse candidates. And the reason they do it is because, not because it looks good on paper, but we have to build products for the entire world. That includes men, women, African American, Muslim, LGBT community, anything. So it does not, in terms of industry, I see that there is like a big push, and right now is like a great time for people who are from diverse backgrounds, because there's a big awareness and people realize that these are important things. Like for example, if I build a phone and I only build it for 50% of the whole world, it doesn't make sense, right? I do want to capture that other market also. And so it's not just like because these things look good on your statistics that people are doing it, but there is a genuine push to actually encourage and also recruit these things. For example, within Google, there are like lots of initiatives that the company takes. There is like a whole like a Howard University initiative where African American students will come and like do an internship within the company. And so even so, it's like I'm a woman of color, right? I'm not American, or white American, I should say. So, but what I'm seeing, one thing is that American culture is the one culture that has that embraces like that. I mean, this is the most diverse I see probably beyond India. But we are all Indians there. But like she said, there's like multiple states and stuff. But this is like such a diverse audience right here. And the thing is that like a lot of industry, lot of like even the like government, everybody is now realizing that. And so I don't, maybe in some fields you might see that, oh, there is a little bit of bias, but the good thing is that things are changing. That's what I believe.
Specifically for Google, I don't know about other companies, but we have a lot of support groups for all these different groups, and I think it's very encouraging just to see that a lot of people are supporting these other these groups, even though they're not African American, they're not Muslim, whatever it is. There's everyone supporting these groups so that they feel better at the workplace. So I like that initiative from Google. I'm not sure what other places are doing, so I don't know.
I've been an academic all my life. I can only talk about academic life, and so pretty much every campus that I have worked in has always been very diverse. So I can't talk for the corporations and the other places.
Perfect. We'd like to thank you all so much for coming. Does anybody have any last minute questions that they? Next, we have one more, and then we will thank our speakers.
Okay. I just like notice one thing in the U.S. and about women. It's like they are everywhere, like works in every place that I go, and it's kind of diverse. But one thing I notice is like they have groups of women that says like they have like the women's march. Like you never heard like a men's march or other march. But what I was trying to figure out, I'm like, why are they doing this like this women's march and men's are not doing it? I think the way I see it, I think they asking for something. I don't know what they're asking for, but I think you guys can help with that. Why are they separated? Like say just women's march, not like everyone's march or something, because it's something that I see here a lot.
Okay, I can try to answer that one. I'm not sure I can really answer it in a satisfactory way. I think what you're trying to ask is, why do you see women, women going on Women's March? Okay. The very reason that they have to do that is because there are differences, and those differences are very subtle, which most people don't see. So it's more under the surface. It's not, they are marching because they want to be treated as equals. And even though on the surface everything looks like, everybody's equal, in India we had this, we would have the saying, all men are created equal, but some are more equal than others. So the men here is just, it's not gender specific, it's just a word, it's just to say in general. So when you say that, what it means is, we can say on paper that everybody is equal, but we are not there yet in spirit, in practice. So when you say that, you see women marching, they're marching, so they say we want to be equals, we want to be treated as equals. So I don't know if that explains anything to you, but.
Just to add to that, I think a lot of it too is about opportunity. We know, right, that women are not necessarily given the same opportunity as men are in some situations. They're not given the same pay for the same jobs they do. I think we're really lucky to live in the Bay Area or in Silicon Valley, where people are talking about these issues, and Google has all of these initiatives and groups, but it's really not the same, I think. I grew up in the Bay Area my whole life, so I can't speak too much to the rest of the country, but really I think, bottom line, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of equality, in terms of opportunity, in terms of, across all demographics, socioeconomic, gender, sexuality, etc. And so I think that's, it's a big reason why we're here today.
So in that spirit, I saw most of the questions were asked by men or guys. There was only one question, I think, from a woman. So can one of you or more of you please feel free to ask more questions about we are here also to support you. One more.
Two more? Two more.
Okay. First off, I know I'm not a panelist, but as someone who went to the Women's March and as a huge women's health activist, we were also marching for women's rights in terms of reproductive health, because lately a lot of men have been trying to tell us what we need to do with our uteruses, and personally that's kind of insulting, because men don't have uteruses, they don't know what it's like to have periods, and that was one of the other things that we were marching for on that day. My other question for the panelists relates to imposter syndrome. So for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's basically like the feeling that you don't deserve to be where you are, or it was a mistake that you were chosen for something, or that you're an imposter in a situation that you're actually very qualified for. My question to the panelists would be, I know it's really hard to be a woman in STEM already, but it's even more difficult when you kind of become your own enemy in some situations. So was there ever a time where you almost didn't apply for something, or you almost didn't make a decision because you didn't feel like you should, like you were qualified? And if so, how did you get over that? how did you overcome the imposter syndrome?
I have a lot of thoughts about imposter syndrome. I feel that immensely all the time. I think especially, I'm very lucky that I was accepted to medical school. Throughout the entire application process, I had very serious self-doubt about whether I was good enough, whether I was smart enough to be a doctor. I'm actually quite nervous to be starting medical school in just a couple of months. Am I going to flunk out in the first semester? These thoughts are constantly running through my head. I had, actually just yesterday, I had a conversation with someone who I work with. We had a big kind of company meeting with some of the lead people at basically they're in pharmaceuticals, so very powerful, very wealthy, make billions of dollars every year. And she was one of the only women in that room, and a lot of times didn't really speak her mind. And reflecting back on kind of that meeting yesterday, she said something. I think for women, oftentimes politeness is mistaken for agreement. And I think that, as women, we think about these things. We think, okay, what's the best way to act in this situation? Should I say something? Should I not say something? It's that back and forth conversation that I have in my head all the time. But I think ultimately, in the end, it's, just go for it. Silence that voice of kind of self-doubt and just do it. I think, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a statistic where women will only apply to jobs if they satisfy every single one of the requirements that job description has. Whereas men will look at that and say, oh, I'm like 50% of the way there, let me apply to this job, right? I don't know whether that's actually a true statistic or not, but I think that really kind of speaks to, I guess at least the way that my mind works a lot of the times. I have to be overly qualified in order to do something. So it's just really silencing that voice and just saying, go for it, and doing it well.
So one example I can give about imposter syndrome is when I got a job offer from Google, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, how is that possible? It's impossible that I'll be working for Google. And that was a big deal. But one of the more recent examples is, after I've worked for a while, I have my confidence and I know things that I can do very well. But there was a recent reorganization in our entire group, and the position for a manager was wide open. And I was pretty sure that I'm not qualified enough. There's no way I will get to be a manager or a technical lead or anything. But frankly speaking, a lot of times your peers or your colleagues can actually drive that. So for example, my boss's boss in fact told me, hey, why don't you go apply for the manager position? And I didn't even have to actually and that thought never crossed my mind. So sometimes you feel that you're an imposter, you don't belong here, but you should also see from others' views. And if somebody gives you a compliment, if somebody tells you, oh, hey, you're doing a great job, they really mean it. They would not tell you unless you're doing that. So you also have to get the feedback from your peers, so that gives you a good reinforcement about your own abilities also.
My first experience teaching in a college was in India, and this was in a military college. So we had only men in the building, and all the professors were men. All the students were men. So my first class was, again, I just walked in there and I was told, let me show you where your classroom is. And they just handed me whatever notes and whatever book I had to use, and I was escorted to the classroom. And the head of the department just introduced me, and he said, this is Miss Sumathi, she is going to teach you. And he gave the book and he walked away. There were 31 men. I was just, I think I just completed my master's, so I must have been about 20 or 21. And most of the guys there were at least 19 or 20. They must be about my age. So there were 30 of them in the room, and I was the teacher. I was terrified. I didn't know, I just thought, what did I just do? Why did I even accept this job? It was my first job. I had just come out of college, and I was excited that here is a military college, and this is a prestigious college, and they gave me a job to teach. And then when I walked in the classroom, it was 31 men, and all of them much taller than me. So I had to literally look up to talk to them. So when I walked in, they all were standing, and they must have realized that, I must have looked really scared. So they just said, do you realize that as our professor, you are an officer? So you need to give us orders. And I walked in and I said, please sit down. And he said, you should never say please. You have to order us. And that scared me even more. But I got over it, and I enjoyed my time there. But it's just for imposter syndrome, sometimes it is there, and you just have to work your way through it. You can talk to someone, you can discuss it with a friend or a mentor or someone else, with a colleague. And you will be surprised at how many other people go through this something similar. So it doesn't have to be the same kind of experience, but the imposter syndrome is very common. And it's something that you can always overcome.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a name to this, but yeah, I have it all the time. And every time I think about it, it's like, man, what am I doing here? Can I just go back home to my parents' hometown and just work somewhere there at their town? And it's like, I wouldn't be happy there. So I kind of just reinforce that to myself and accept the challenge and move forward with it. But yeah, there's been a lot of times when I'm like, oh my God, should I just go back and just, but then I'll be bored if that closed. I was like, oh, I like this challenge. So yeah. And also find a group, a good group of friends that are very encouraging, because a lot of the times when I'm having problems at work or there's something that I'm just not understanding, or I'm having problems with the teammates or whatever it is, I talk with my friend. I have two friends that do the same kind of work as me, and we talk about it, and they help me out to kind of come out of that stage and help me out with some solutions to solve those problems or whatever it is. So I think that's really important, to find like a support group that is going to encourage you to move forward, and not negative people that are encouraging you to go the other way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So this will be our absolute last question.
So, did you guys ever struggle academically, and if so, how did you get through it?
Yeah, so I did, and it was bad. It was my second math class, math 76. Well, it was math 76, this calculus 2, I believe. Oh my God, I failed it, and I was crying. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm changing majors. And I wanted to go back home. I was like, no, I'm leaving. But then I was like, no, you know what? I'm just gonna, take it again. And the second time around, I just thought about it, like, what should I do different? I failed it once, what do I do? And it was the first class I ever failed. At high school I did really good, and then getting to college, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I never thought I would ever fail a class. So I just approached it in a different way. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I set up like a plan. Okay, so I did never go to any office hours before, so guess what? I'm going to office hours now. And whatever I didn't understand, solutions manual, where's the solutions manual? I'll just get it, the answer there. And I was like, no, that's not helping you at all. So I also created a study group with my friends. So we all would meet and go over the poems and then just go from there. So the second time taking it around, I got an A, and I was like very proud of that A, and I was like, okay, this is how I'm moving forward. So it's also like a little learning curve for me, how to take college classes more seriously rather than high school where it's like, oh, this is easy, just do the homework and, study a little bit and just go to take tests. So from that point on, I really took my classes more serious and I focused more on my classes, so, yeah.
So, machine learning is a big deal right now these days. When I was doing a master's, machine learning, artificial intelligence was not, it was not that big of a noise that we have right now. And I took this, everybody told me, hey, this is the most difficult class on neural networks. And I said, sure, I'll take it. There were like 5 students in that class because pretty much nobody would take it. And I took it for some reason, I don't know why, now I'm trying to remember why. And it was like the toughest class of my career, of my education life. And I just could not grasp the concepts. Somehow I stayed through. I did not fail, but it was a very, very miserable class for me. And so personally, I feel like, that I sort of failed in that field because the one thing I realized is it's not for me. So sometimes you do have some failures like that, but it's okay. But as long as you take the holistic approach and you know that, oh, maybe this 1 or 2 fields or 1 or 2 subjects are not that great, but you have something else to focus on, I think that should pull you through.
My academic challenge was not with math or science, it was with languages. So when I was in 8th grade, from 7th to 8th grade when I passed, my dad moved to this new place and I had to go to this new school, and the new school had 2 new languages that were required. So we spoke 1 language at home, and I did all my studies in English, and I had 2 more languages. One was the state language and one was the national language. So I had to learn Hindi and I had to learn Marathi. The 2 languages are very similar. So to add to the confusion, they had the same alphabets with just a few changes, some minor differences. And I was learning from alphabets. Well, most of my classmates, they already had at least 5 years of experience learning it. Some of them had, they've been speaking it at home, so they knew it from the day they were born. So I had to compete with them, and I had to pass the class. So that was my biggest challenge. And half the time I would write answers that I felt that everything was fine. And then my teacher would be laughing and she would tell me, no, you just wrote everything in the other language. And it took me a while to understand. So I learned 2 new languages simultaneously at the same time, and it took me a while. However, 2 years later, when I had to take the public exam, I did extremely well, better than all my classmates. I went that far mainly because I was always worried about those 2 languages. I thought, if I ever fail, those are the 2 subjects that I'm going to fail. I was not practicing math. I was not practicing science. It was those 2 languages I was worried about. But guess what? Once I completed that, I went to college, to 11th grade, and I had a lot of choices. And when they asked me, what would you take as your second language? I said, I'll take French. So my dad was with me and he goes, you just went through all that struggle. Why do you want to take a new language? Just take one of those that you just learned and you mastered. I said, no, I think I have a lot of fun taking French because now I want to learn languages. So I think that was a big learning curve for me, but also it gave me so much more confidence than not just the STEM field, but I consider that as the biggest challenge in my life and something that I really enjoy even now.
Well, we want to thank you, and
we get a round of applause for the panel.
I'm just gonna jump in really quick. I wanna give one more huge thank you to these women in STEM, our students. They put together this entire event on their own. They came to me with this idea. They found these women, had the courage to approach them and ask them. They coordinated this whole thing, asked for help from the staff, but this is happening purely because of them and their efforts and their passion. And some people have talked about going home and crying because things have been terrible. I'm going to go home tonight and cry because I'm so, so proud. So can we just thank them one more time?
Thank you so much. I think there might be some pizza left and definitely some water. So thank you so much.